Hi, this is Chris Newson. Welcome to the Root Cause Analysis podcast, where we'll take our listeners right to the heart of the important EHS issues. We're coming to you live from Woodland Grange, a conference and hotel venue in the Midlands. In this episode of the Root Cause Analysis podcast, we'll be looking at how you can progress your EHS career and make use of that professional network. We now welcome Lisa Rollinson to our podcast. So Lisa is the HSE lead for Weiland Metals. Lisa's also a chartered member of IOSH and she's the vice chair of the Birmingham Health, Safety and Environmental Association. One of the things that Lisa says on her profile is that she's been helped by many amazing professionals over 15 years of her career so far. So we'll hope to get into that. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us. I think the interview today is really important for our members because I think there's a lot of people out there. Maybe they're just starting out in an EHS career. Maybe they're in something different and they want to get into EHS. And I think your story of your successes in that will inspire them, to be quite honest. So no pressure. We'll go through that and hopefully they'll find it useful. Okay, so thanks for joining us. I know how busy you are with all these different roles that you've got. First of all, tell us about yourself, if you don't mind, and tell us how you became HSE lead at Weiland Metals.
Okay, so my career started in the northeast of England and I worked in research and development labs for 18.5 years. And I got to a stage of my career where I kind of wanted to do a bit more, something a bit more exciting, a bit different. So I volunteered to join the emergency management team, which involved doing BA training and all of the incident, because we were surrounded by coma sites.
Okay.
So I did that for a little bit, and then it was decided that because we were labs, and it was decided that we didn't need to do the BA side, but we did need an emergency management team, so I did that. That got me thinking that I would really like to join, do something different in my career, and work with people. So I considered joining. I considered joining the fire brigade, and part of that I volunteered for the fire support network with a lady called Heather, and she inspired me to realise my skills were important and the things that were adaptable. And there was an after fire support service which I set up on the health and safety and the environmental side of it before I actually moved into this area. From that I kind of decided I wanted to do health and safety. My husband was relocating to this area. I was going to stay in the northeast and I decided to just go for it because voluntary redundancy came up.
Big step.
Massive step because there wasn't a plan B. And I wasn't even sure if it was going to work out. So I got a job at Bridgenorth Aluminium and in the labs, just covering maternity leave. And while I was doing that, they said, can you help us out with the standards? So the quality, environmental, health and safety, they were going to have an audit. So from the stuff I'd done in my previous job, I could see that things like CMIOSH and bits and pieces needed extra work, and I started giving people a bit of training as well as... and one day they called me up to the office and they basically started asking me questions, a bit like an interview.
Right. They hadn't warned you about this at all?
No.
Okay.
And they said, really, we want you to work in health and safety. And my manager said to me, well, we think you're better at this than in the lab. I was like, I worked in the lab for 8.5 years. That was all right at that. Yeah. And I had been doing my national certificate at this time as well.
The NEBOSH?
The NEBOSH national certificate, yeah. So it worked out quite well. And being the company it is, there was an awful lot going on. I got a lot of experiences. There's a lot, was rebuilding, a couple of refurbishments, building a new building from scratch. And just because it's heavy industry, because there's a lot going on, it was a really, really good place to start with. So I got a lot of good experiences from there.
Fantastic.
Make UK, we had updates from them at the time when I was doing that as well.
Of course, yeah. Very helpful, I would imagine. Yeah.
Being manufacturing, so it was all good. And then after 8.5 years, I thought I'd say, I was worried about being typecast in heavy industry, and I thought that'd be a thing. So I joined Monks & Crane, who no longer exist. Went into just a retail, so did that for a year and a half, and then decided that I really did want to get back into industry, so then I moved back. So then I joined Weiland Metals Birmingham then.
Where you are now.
Where I am now.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
So you talked about, you seem to there have taken a lot of chances, and I think without getting too deep into things, you do that in life sometimes, and hopefully it works out, right? And it's nice when it does. And you also talked about the NEBOSH certificate there as one of the many qualifications you did, I'm sure. And if I think back in my career, it's really, the beginning bit is really similar. So I was in quality, and traditionally, people seem to associate it with the same, disciplines, systems, procedures, etc. So literally the same thing happened to me, so you're doing quality, we want you to do health and safety. And maybe similar to you, I said to them, that's great, but I need training, so I'll do the NEBOSH certificate, which is all good. A little bit embarrassing for me because, at the time the pass rate was 45% and I got 46. So, I like to be efficient with the energy there. But anyway, hopefully it'll be a bit better now. But just on that NEBOSH certificate thing I'm particularly interested in, I feel like a lot of people are quite worried about it. It's put out there as quite difficult, I think, and a lot of time. What's your sort of takeaway from it? What did you think about the NEBOSH certificate?
I feel that it's still the best start. It's the best grounding foundation for people to start with, and I think that kind of it's good to have really that real understanding in each of those topics, and then you can just build from it from there. And I know the actual exams have changed, where it's a 12-hour exam now. But it's nothing to get worried about, really.
No, in some ways, I think it's I won't say easier, but it's different, isn't it?
Because, it's different. My apprentice has recently done it.
Okay,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Did you do it when it was 2 exams?
Yes,
and you literally had to sit in a room for 2 hours. Interesting. Nice experience. So you've got an apprentice that's doing it now. The sort of whatever you want to call it, the more recent.
Yes,
wow.
So she's just passed that.
Okay.
So,
wow. Amazing. Yeah.
So it's like an open. It's like a virtual open book. Sort of, you can go off and research things now more than just sitting in a room remembering stuff.
Yeah. Because we just had to remember all the facts, didn't we?
Fun memories. Memorising the health safety workouts.
I think one of the things with all my qualifications I've realised is that if you're stuck in an exam, to think about what would you do at work.
Right.
And I think with all my qualifications, I've got the most learning from learning a bit, going to work, finding something similar, and then when you are in that exam situation or life situation, you can think back to what did we do in that situation, and it's quite good to do. Yeah,
I agree. It's so much of a better qualification now they've gone that route, because before, you could just be really good at remembering stuff and not actually be any good at health and safety, maybe, So interesting. We agree on that point. So going back to your career, which is really what we're here to talk about, when did you realise that EHS was your thing? When did you realise it was for you?
When I started seeing positive change in the workplace, and I started seeing people, because with health and safety, it isn't necessarily, you're not going to get like a scorecard to say, you've done well, you've stopped X number of accidents. It's really difficult to work out how many accidents should have happened.
True. Yeah.
So once you see, people changing the way they do things at work and, adopting, not everybody is going to say, I'll follow what you say because you're absolutely right. Well, it takes a bit of time and you've just got to have a bit of patience to be able to win people over. And some people you won't ever win over. And, it's just you've got to do it with policy and things like that. But most people will come round in the end.
Yeah.
And people have come to see me and later on and said, well, you know, I was against all what you were doing, but now I actually realise you were doing the right thing in the end.
Amazing. And has that genuinely happened?
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. For me, I don't think you get that. I could be wrong, but I don't think you get that in any other job, because your job really is to keep them safe and healthy. And yeah, I mean, I've been the same. There's lots of challenges. People don't really think you're doing it for that reason, but ultimately, you know, you get someone, just even one person come up to you and say, you know, thanks or whatever. I feel safer because of what you did. I mean, it's really powerful, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, definitely. And the big thing is working as a team. It's a total massive thing. You've kind of got to have, you know, those conversations and understand. First, ask them why they're doing things in a certain way. Right. If people say, "Oh, you don't want to know," I do. Go on, tell me. What's the worst can happen? And you know, at Weiland, I found that we've made some really big changes just because we've had those difficult conversations. Okay. You know, people have just really benefited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an important part of an EHS practitioner's skills, isn't it? You know, that being able to talk to people and all that related stuff. You know, not to be a professional psychologist. I mean, that would help, but you know, just people. It's not complicated at the end of the day. You know, parents. Yeah, fantastic.
And everyone's different at the end of the day as well.
Right.
So we're all got different needs, and we all understand things in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just sort of get the law out and apply that and it's going to work every time.
You must follow this. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. So, and again, you know, this sort of goes on from the last question here. You know, what's the biggest challenge you've had to date in your career?
It would be in COVID, because early on in COVID there was no direction really from the HSE, and we were kind of all on our own, weren't we, really, with...
At the very beginning,
with the bits of government guidance that came out. So it was, and then we had the guys being quite nervous, and people who've never been nervous before coming up to us and saying, is it going to be okay? And they were genuinely really concerned because of all of the stuff that the government had been
putting out. Had you remained open at this point?
Yes, but we did different things, so we had some new guys in and some off, as everybody did. So we I just listened to anything that I possibly could on the subject, and we actually, IOSH did some quite good things, where they were ahead of the game a bit because they had a podcast in Hong Kong and stuff like that. And I remember listening to the first podcast with them, and there was a doctor from WHO on.
Wow.
I asked him a question early on. I'll ask him a question, and it was just nice to have that answered at the time.
That's amazing. So you know, through that podcast, you got direct access to the World Health Organization doctor. Wow, amazing.
Yeah. And then by the time the HSE came out, I think it was in June, with their guidance, all nice, and it was great. It was good guidance, but it would have been good to have some of that guidance earlier on. It would have really, really helped. Yeah. And we'd done, I think, probably 85% of the stuff that was needed. Yeah. But yeah, would just give us a bit more reassurance.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose at the time, you know, everyone's sort of struggling for. It's not something we'd ever faced before, you know, not in living memory anyway, and you know, hopefully we never go through it again. But I think, you know, even if it did happen again, a lot of things are in place now that weren't before. So everyone's learning, aren't they?
Yeah, we'd have a good idea, unless it was something brand new. But if it was something brand new, we'd have a better idea what to do with that new thing. And my diploma that I did, part of the diploma, they try and give you something that you've never looked at before for your big assignment at the end. Okay. So I got farms, and it was interesting because the research I did that, and the different things I did that, I used that in COVID, how to do that research. So it was quite good. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you know, broadens out your perspective on things. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So we talked about COVID there. Did you? I think we were talking off camera earlier. Did you have another example?
Yeah. I always promised him I would do this. I would say about this. So my father-in-law, he actually died from mesothelioma. I can't say the word.
Mesothelioma.
That's correct.
I've been practicing the word. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, nice. And the reason he died from it was because he was making fire doors in a company in Stockton, and he was like carpenter. So he was So you'd be cutting the doors and they had asbestos inside them. You'd be putting them in the oven, and then they'd have a layer of asbestos on the top of them as well. Be wiping that asbestos off. Then you'd be putting the asbestos in the ground as well. Eventually, he was given a mask to share between 5 people.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
So he's got a mask.
He's got a mask,
PPE,
yeah.
He's got to share it with 4 other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just out of interest, when is this roughly?
Probably 80s, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So it goes over quite a long period of time.
Okay.
And then, so then even the act of cleaning that mask, he was putting himself at risk as well.
Yeah.
So years later, he did have a problem, and he made a claim against the company. He kept various records and things like that. But it's just not a nice disease at all. It's very nasty, and the government give you a certain amount of money because they know that you're not going to be able to claim against the company quick enough.
Right.
So it did take him quite quickly, really. Not a nice way to go.
No.
Horrible.
Well, thanks for sharing that
yeah.
with us. You know, it's probably hard to talk about, but it's so important. And just which part of your health and safety career were you at when all this was going on in your private life?
I was actually working in industrial retail at the time for Monks and Crone.
And did you? I mean, I guess it inspired you to do even more with it. Just puts it in perspective how important it is.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to remember is that when people turn around and say to you, it won't matter in 40 years' time, it does. I mean, it's a big effect, these sorts of illnesses. I mean, it's struggling to breathe and nobody wants to go that way.
And so, I mean, obviously, it's so avoidable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But it's still out there. We've still got buildings full of it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're struggling to get somebody to do the right thing and follow the right guidance, or do that refurbishment survey, try again another day in a different way. Just don't give up. It just encapsulates how important it is. So once again, thanks for sharing that with us.
Okay, thank you. It's difficult to transition from that, but we'll move back to your career if that's okay. And as we said at the beginning, I think a lot of people in the same boat as you've talked about, you were and I was, starting off in their EHS career. If you had to give them one piece of advice, they're starting off, what would that be?
There's going to be hard days, there's going to be good days, but just keep going with it. Just don't give up straight away. That's one of the things. And this role is all about support and being part of a team. So, and don't be afraid of not knowing the answer to a question. We all don't know every single answer to the question. And people both appreciate that you'd go away and find out what that answer is. Look for the positives in things. And people do appreciate that, and they will respond better if say that things, if they're doing things genuinely well, you want to tell them that they're doing things genuinely well. So definitely. Just focusing on the negative, because it's easy to focus on negatives, but everybody does something. I mean, it might be hard, but everyone finds something that they're doing well.
And I think, I don't know whether it's particularly the culture of the UK, but it's quite difficult for people to say, well done, you're doing that well. You can almost hear people saying, well, what's the benefit of just telling them? But it is, isn't it? It's that, to give them a compliment and sort of reward them in that way for what they're doing. It's just genuine, isn't it? And then when you're having to sort of remind them of something they're not doing as well, it comes out as different. Yeah. Okay.
And not everyone can manage to go from doing the qualifications and everything and actually put it into real life, because in a real life situation we haven't got perfect opportunities, and sometimes you have to have a bit of negotiation with the teams. And still do everything legal, but give them a bit of a say in it, and they have a bit of buy-in on it, and then they own that idea. I've never been precious about saying, oh, that's my idea. I quite like to start the seed and then get them to add things to it. And then we do it together at the end. So if they say at the end, oh, we've got this great idea, you have, that's great. I'm just happy you haven't got hurt.
I mean, we're more facilitators, aren't we? They have got the detail, as you say.
Yeah, and they know their jobs.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the best person to help come up with the best idea to keep themselves safe.
Fantastic. Okay. Before off camera, you were saying about the going back to the COVID thing we were talking about earlier on.
Yeah.
You were talking about you did your IOSH IPD during COVID.
Yeah.
Just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. I am probably my own worst enemy, really, because I put off IPD, and I put off IPD for every possible reason. So I joined the scheme to become chartered, and I didn't really read it, and I got hooked up on GDPR and all kinds of things, and then it lapsed. And then on COVID, I rejoined. Well, I rejoined before COVID, and I thought, I've got a bit of time, maybe I should just have a look. Because I'd noticed a lot of people who had a lot less experience than me were passing, how can they be chartered? Because chartered is like, way up here.
Yeah.
And so I started to read through it, and all of the IPD I actually got through in 2 months, because I already had all the evidence. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, yeah, by the June, I started at Easter, by the June, I'd been through my interview and passed.
Wow. That's a fantastic achievement. I mean, if people aren't aware of that process, just the summary details. So you get your level 6 qualification. You've done your certificate in the past. You get your level 6 qualification. You then got this IPD process where you've got five or six criteria, things like risk assessment and so on. And basically, you have to provide evidence to prove that you've done that to IOSH.
Yeah, to prove that you can actually do the job that you've got the qualifications for.
Fair enough. Yeah. Good, a fair thing for them to ask us to do. And so you were able to do that during the COVID, lockdown. Another success story for IOSH, getting you through there with their IPD.
Well, it was a good process.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Brilliant. Okay, so going back to your career again and thinking right back to the beginning, is there anything you wish you'd have known at the very beginning that you know now would have helped you out, sped things up, whatever it might be?
Okay, I think the key is to understanding, making people understand what they need to do to stay safe.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Everyone's understanding is going to be different. So it's really important to make sure that you can get work on that, really. I mean, currently at work, we've got it seems like every nationality at work at the moment, because they're doing a very big project, putting some new furnaces in, and so we've had to make adaptations for those people, so make sure that they are still getting that safe to clear safety message.
Okay, so you've got language barrier, that sort of thing. Okay,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, and we talked about it before. It's a people business, isn't it? EHS, and you've got to convince them. Yeah. It's funny. You think you shouldn't have to convince them to keep themselves safe, but it's understandable because it's a work environment. They're thinking about other things. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and I think the question was about what would you wish you'd known at the beginning. I think most EHS practitioners, when they start out, don't really realise how much of a people business it is, and those sort of influencing skills are really important.
Yeah, which is why IOSH have changed their soft skills, and the whole assessment process that we do for CPD, it's a totally different animal now, isn't it? It's like they get answered lots of different questions now. There's little tests and things, but it's all around soft skills. Yeah. So, but I think that process is quite good. It feels hard at the time, but I think if people, and I've heard it getting quite a lot of bad rep, but I think if people realise it's for them to self-evaluate, to improve, I think then, they'd realise it's actually really worth doing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's a bit like, we're talking about our careers, it's a bit like that. You just got to try it, with the new blueprint tool or whatever it might be, because, and I agree 100% with what you said, there's these mandatory e-learning bits that you've got to do, which introduce you to that sort of influencing skills and how important behaviour is, and they should be mandatory because it's not just about do I know the cost regulations or whatever, there's that people element. So I agree. I think that's really important. And if I could give one message to anyone, it would be give it a chance. Try it and go from there. Okay, so What's next for you then? You know, you've talked about your career so far and where you're up to, and it sounds like you've had amazing successes. What's next for you?
I've decided to leave Weiland, and I'm actually going to become a consultant.
Okay.
For a company called BPA Services. And in that role, it's going to be a better work-life balance, and I'm going to be able to, I'll be helping like probably 10 companies at a time. So I'll go out and see them in their businesses and then help them back at the office as well. So it's a different role, but I'm quite looking forward to the challenges that role is going to bring.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds exciting. Just because you mentioned it there, you know, that work-life balance element. I mean, I'm sure you're the same. I talk to people all the time that you know, relatively senior people that say, well, you know, you can't have a work-life balance. You got to do one or the other. You know, be good at that or this. You can't do both. Any views on that?
Yeah. Well, I haven't done it wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
Myself.
We've all been there.
Yeah. I've just been working all the time. Though this is a big. I mean, like, I've just had a big birthday, and it makes you think about what you want. And you know, I started to think about what people were saying about getting a better work-life balance. Yeah. Spent a lot of time on the M6. Going the wrong way towards Birmingham, so so this is gonna truly give me more time back. So I've got more time in my life, so I better finally try and get around the park run and things like that.
Yeah, sounds exciting. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, very ambitious. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that question about work-life balance, is it possible? I mean, I personally think it is. You know, you've just got to decide, you know, where you're going to put the effort and how much time and effort you've got, and share it out equally, or, you know.
Yeah, it's about being nice to it's about being nice to yourself, really, and giving yourself, making sure you allocate time. Yes. Just for you. Yeah. At the end of the day, and you know, like in my past, it's like, you know, families took up a lot of time, and feels like you know, constantly dropping kids off and things. But I can relate to that, but. You know, it's important no matter what stage of life you're at, that you have that bit of time for yourself. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You only get one go at it, don't you? It's a bit of a cliche, right? But it's absolutely true. Yeah. So you know, don't waste it. Yeah. Okay. Been great speaking to you. I really appreciate your time, because you know how busy you are, all the different things that you do. So great to meet you. Thanks, it's a
Lisa.
pleasure. Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
At the time of recording, in March 2024, Lisa was working for Weiland Metals. In April 2024, she started as a new role as a health and safety consultant at BPA Services. This is the part of the show where we talk to one of our consultants who's going through the IPD process to become a chartered member of IOSH. Hopefully it will help to demystify that process for you. Hi Leila, how are you doing?
Hi Chris, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Very good. Yes, good. Yeah. Well, I am very good, but I think that you've got quite an update for us on this episode of the podcast. Quite a lot has happened since last time.
Yes, so it has.
Do you want to talk us through where you are with your IOSH journey? Straight over to you.
Absolutely. So the last time we spoke, my date was coming up of when the assessment would be released. Remember this part A, multiple choice, then part B, open sort of paper assessment that you go through. The good news is that on the date they said it opened, it did. And
Excellent.
I thankfully managed to scrape my way through. I've done it. I've passed. The multiple choice part A, was exactly as I expected, although I have to have a little laugh because some of the questions that I thought was, oh, absolutely smash that one out of the park, I might have got that one wrong. And the other ones that I had to really sit and scratch my head about and proper think into, they were fine. So just a caution for our listeners. If you think it's too easy and it's too simple to be true, you're probably right. Have a think about it again. Is the advice I would give on that.
Now, Leila, when you say you scraped through, I mean, I'm sure that's is that true? Really, do you actually get
like a score at the end? Is that how it works?
You do indeed. And how it works is obviously you get the part A assessment is your multiple choice. That's a straight off. And there and then you get your percentage. So what you've scored on that. And then that's also the part where, unfortunately, if you're not successful on that one, you can't go on to part B. So thankfully, that one I managed to quite comfortably, I feel, smash out the park. Part B was a little bit more tricky.
Okay.
And I will be honest, frustrating as well, because the questions were actually proper juicy questions that sort of made you go, I need to go away and have a good think about this. But they only give you 700 words for each question.
Okay.
So if you can imagine, part B is 2 questions. Each question or little scenario, if you like, so you have a question A and a question B. Question A then has a little scenario and then 3 parts to it. And then question B has a little scenario and 3 parts to it. And each of those parts then gets, this is for 10 marks, this is for 25 marks, this is for 15 marks, that sort of thing. So I'm immediately harking back to my NEBOSH diploma days where I'm thinking, oh, crikey, here we go. So I really struggled with 700 words for all of part A and 700 words for all of part B when there was 10, 25, 50 points in the whole of the above. So it was very tricky.
So I mean, like you said there, thinking back to like the last time I wrote an assignment where it's like a specific number of words, 700 words is really not a lot.
It's really not a lot.
So just for example, in one of those questions, would there be like 50 marks or something,
Yes. So for example, the first one I had, again, little scenario, it was something to do with car manufacturing. And the first one was then detailed points about this part of it, 20 points. And then the second part was discuss measures that you'd put in place, 20 points. And then the last one would be recommend a program of something, 10 points. So it was 50 points overall, but split into the 3 areas. And again, 700 words for all of it. So it was incredibly limiting. So, I mean, I did it, and how I did it was my standard way. I always have what I like to call a mind bleh, where I literally just on 2 pieces of paper just
is that a technical term?
That is the technical term, Chris. You'll be very happy to know that. But it's exactly as it says on the tin, where you literally just chuck out everything that's in your mind onto a bit of paper, then go away. Have a little think, let it percolate a little bit, and then come back and start to pick the bones out of it and then try and produce something. I did make the fatal mistake of going, do you know what? Write it how you would write it for the NEBOSH diploma. See how many words you're on and then dial it back from there. Well, okay, so I may have come up with a few more words than was necessary.
Right,
and then spent probably most of my time trying to fit it into 700 words. And that was my biggest issue I had with the whole thing, was that
number of words.
Exactly, the whole number of words, especially with the marks that they expect you to get. It's incredibly difficult. So when I say scraped through part B, I did score less, and I will be honest, disappointed, because I know again, with IOSH, the effort that you go in to actually achieve this chartership is phenomenal. So the effort to go in and actually do this response to part B, when you're so limited, and for them, they are extremely tight scorers. Am I allowed to say that?
I think so.
So it kind of felt, I felt a little bit disheartened at the end of that one. But overall, it's a win. So it's done.
Yeah, you move on to the next stage.
Exactly.
Which is the end goal here.
Exactly.
In terms of, the sort of value of this for our listeners, watchers, etc., I think it'd be really useful. I know we've done it a little bit before, but just to sort of talk about some of the detail, just let people see inside the process, because we've said before, people are quite worried about the process. I feel like anyway. So just in terms of these 2, part A, part B, just going back to part A,
Just tell us a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, and perhaps without reading the question out, because obviously that wouldn't be the right thing to do. Just give us a general example of a type of question that would be in part A, if you don't mind.
If my memory will allow me to do so, yes.
Yes, okay.
So again, the good news is about part A, it was extremely straightforward. Me and technology are not friends, but this was simple, so much so that I could use it without panicking. So that's always a win.
Bonus, yeah.
And it was literally you clicked on start and you were able to flick between all questions. So it wasn't until you were happy with all of them that you would then go and hit submit. So it's not like you had to do question one and then move on. So that was really good as well. And there were simple things from questions, I say simple, from questions such as there'd be like true or false questions. Is it true that you have to have a written policy for less than 5 people? For example, something like that. So obviously you're then going, whatever your answer is, and then scooching on to the next one. But then there might be
that, Leila, did you get that right, that one?
Thankfully, yes. Thankfully, yes.
Well done. Congratulations. Okay, yeah.
But then there would be other questions that would talk about, I'm trying to think, there was things like fault analysis questions on there.
Okay, right.
They were quite things like the process of fault analysis, in what order would it go in, so you'd have to drag and drop and things like that. So that had a bit of a head scratch moment where you sort of go, well, I think it's this, but okay, so
they're
let's
quite
have a think
different
about
levels, those questions, aren't they?
Yes,
those 2 examples,
absolutely. But if we think back to our previous podcast, IOSH were exactly right, of course they were, when they said we're going to be going across the whole breadth of the 11 different, or I think it was 11 different areas or 10 different areas or categories that they've got. Literally, I would suggest there were sort of 2 or 3 from each different areas.
Right.
There were a couple of tricky questions in as such that the wording, when you read it, and unfortunately I can't remember the exact wording, but when you read it, you're like, oh, well, it's that's the answer. But actually, when I went back, because I went back and read through them all again before I submitted, and my top tip is read what the question says, not what you think the question says, because as humans we're very good at shortcuts and just reading what we assume is on the page because we see the first couple of words. No, go back and read it, because when I read a couple of them again, because they're quite wordy, some of them, I'd actually realized there and then I'd got it wrong, and was like, thank goodness I reread that, because I had fallen into that trap of first couple of words, oh, I know what they're asking me, this is the answer. Actually, no, it wasn't. So there, in fact, a couple of times, if you'd have been listening to me whilst doing that, you'd have heard me go, little tinkers, honestly, because it feels like they're trying to trip you up. There was more. You did need quite a lot of focus throughout all of that.
And that's just as an interesting, well, hopefully interesting aside type question. I mean, what were the mechanics of it? Did you literally have to sort of lock yourself away for a certain amount of time in order to really? And how
100%.
How long does it take to do part 1?
So I seem to recall.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was an hourly time limit. I think it was 3 hours, maybe. We might need to double check that one, just because I've done another exam since, and that was 2 hours, so I can't remember which one was which. But I know I certainly needed the majority of the time that was allocated. Now, whether everyone would need that, I don't know, because I know that I'm one of these, that I am quite thorough, diligent. I will go back and double check. I don't just fly through them. I take my time. So I know I needed pretty much the full time to do it in. So I guess it depends.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I guess it depends on the type of learner that the people are that are doing this, whether you can just go through it and are confident in your immediate answers or not.
I mean, from what you've said, it sounds like even if you do feel like that, then double checking, triple checking would be a good idea.
Yes.
Obviously. In terms of, again, the mechanics of it, is it a limited, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, is it a limited, is it fixed? Does it throw you out after that amount of time?
I believe so.
Total? Yes, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I believe
and
so.
And presumably you can pause it Can you, or do you have to sit down for
No.
2 hours and that's
Once you're in, you're in. It starts.
right.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So I guess there, I'm sure you did this. You've got to be, prepared. You've got to be ready. Don't get disturbed. All that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
And again, another detailed procedural type question. Are you allowed to have information in front of you, or are you expected to recall all of the answers? Are you allowed to sort of go and look up the answer? How does that work?
So my understanding was that, because it is an open assessment, you
Yes.
have the ability to go and research if you've got the time. I will suggest to our listeners that hopefully there will be a number of questions, the majority of them, that it is in your head somewhere. It is there, so you don't need to do that. But there are some absolute tricksters where especially the ones where they're quite wordy and they're perhaps about something that isn't an everyday health and safety activity, for example. So you do need to have an awareness of that.
Like fault tree analysis, for example.
Yes. Ironically, I'd read something quite recently on that, so I was quite happy when I actually didn't need to do anything additional to that. It was just a case of, I think it's this, and it was, thankfully. So there we go.
Very good. Right, so that's part one. So you've got these relatively short. I think sounds like questions.
Multiple choice.
And so, okay, right. And are they all multiple choice?
Yes. So that's whole the whole part A is multiple choice all the way through.
Okay. So you do that, and then do you get scored on that separately before you can move on to B?
Yes, exactly, because they don't allow you to move on to B until you have successfully completed part A. So there and then you get I think it took about 30 seconds maybe of nail biting moment, and then ping, it comes through and you're good to go on to part B. And literally there and then part B is open to you.
Okay. All right. So let's go on to part B then. I know you've briefly talked about it already, but it's the same sort of questions. What are the mechanics of part B? How does that work?
Yeah, so the minute it opens, it's literally, again, on the IPD screen, they've got the 2 questions there. They tell you it's the 700 marks, and basically you can either type it directly into the text box that's on the IPD screen. The only problem with that is it doesn't allow for any sort of formatting or bullet points or anything like that.
Right.
Or you can upload a Word or a PDF document. So that's what I did. I copied the questions themselves over onto a Word document, one document for question A, one document for question B, and then, like I say, did this blur onto the paper and just sort of got all the bits and pieces down that I immediately thought of. And then I submitted a PDF of the document that I was working on. And that was really simple. As with all these computer things, it was the little attach or insert, I think it was, and you find your document, you upload it, and that's it. So all sorted.
And this is again a sort of a detailed procedural type question, but so you do a PDF. Is each question? So there's 2 questions. Each question might be several different parts, but the total amount of words allowed is 700 words.
Correct.
Okay, correct. And you put that in your PDF in your case, and it recognises however many words there are when you upload it.
So I didn't see that it did that when I submitted it. What I tried doing first off, because I thought I'd be a little bit clever, is copy the Word document information, the answers that I put into the area where you can put the text straight in, just so I was happy that I'd got less, or 700 words or less. But it really did throw the formatting out. So although it checked that I got the right amount of words in there, it looked a mess. So I then deleted it all out of there and just thought, no, do you know what, just stick with your Word document. Because that's the other thing with Word documents as well. Of course, you get the number count, the word count at the bottom. So I kind of knew that if Word's telling me it's 697 and IOSH are telling me it's 697, we're good to go, sort of thing. So
pretty good. Okay, all right. So that's, understand all of that. And again, similar question to part A, without without saying the actual question, I don't know if you can remember them, what sort of questions are we looking at in part B?
Yep. So I had the two initial questions. Question one was about, I'm fairly certain it was some sort of car manufacturer line, that sort of thing, and it was talking about things like repetitive strain, the manual handling, that sort of stuff. What were they doing with it? And then you'd have, okay, so if this is the scenario, and bearing in mind the scenario is a little paragraph, it's not a 2-3 pages like we'd find in the NEBOSH. It's just literally a very top overview. And then it would be, explain health risks, describe control measures, and recommend what you would do with this and that sort of thing, and then the different points with that. And then question 2 was very similar, but then the one I had was about a coma site, which was interesting because I haven't had a lot to do with coma, but actually that was a great opportunity for me to go and have a really good research and find out what's going on. And again, that was things like, why should this company or this site have an emergency plan? What should be in it? What's the type of scenario or measures you would expect to see in this scenario, and so on and so forth. And one of them was a big chunky one. I think the control measures was like a 25 pointer. So that was quite a big one for that question. So it was that type of question. So when I first saw the word coma, I thought, oh my goodness, here we go. What I don't really know too much about that, but
it's actually quite a specialised area, isn't it?
It is, but the questions weren't necessarily specialised, not really, because although one of them was definitely asking about, why would you have an emergency plan? Well, why would any site have an emergency plan realistically? And now think of that, but with obviously bells on. Now that's why we need an emergency plan, that sort of thing. So it was okay. So although there was a little bit of panic that set in the first place, the questions were actually quite reasonable considering the information they gave you.
Good news. And I presume that, at the end of the day, these are your 2 set questions. There's not, you haven't got several to choose from.
No, you're given the set questions.
And again, just going back to mechanics, you do your answers, you press submit, etc. And then what happens? How long do you have to wait then?
Well, they said, bless them, 4 weeks is around the usual time. However, 4 weeks later, I received an email from IOSH to say, we are very sorry, there have been so many submissions this time round that we're behind in marking. So it's coming, but just not yet. And so I think all in all, I think it was about 7-8 weeks. So it's been quite some time since I've actually had my results, she says. Was it about that? Yeah, about 7 weeks, I think it was. And you literally get, the little squeak of joy that I did when I saw the congratulations, you have successfully, and it was like, yes, thank goodness. And definitely my advice to our listeners is take the win. Don't worry about what the score was. Take the win, definitely. Because I did, it's disheartening if you think, the amount of effort, oh dear, but okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're talking to someone who passed their NEBOSH certificate by 1 mark, so I can relate to.
With all the effort and stuff that goes into it.
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's fantastic news. You've heard that you've passed both elements now.
Yes.
What's the next stage in the process? What happens now?
Yeah, so on that congratulations email that I received, it said the next thing we are going to do is audit your CPD. Please, now it actually says, please email us at this email address to request this, which I did. But I do understand that maybe that's an automatic thing anyway. Now, obviously, I emailed them because it asked me to, and I would recommend that our listeners do that because that's what they're asking. But that I also understand that should just automatically happen anyway. And then the very good news is I dropped the email over and said, please, can you audit me? And this week we have done your audit. Everything is tickety-boo. They didn't say that, but that was what I got from it. You may now proceed and book your interview. So that's where I'm at. I now just need to book my interview. And hopefully, providing they like my interview, that's it. We're talking chartership.
Yeah.
So very
Amazing.
exciting. Yes.
Okay. So you've sent that. So currently, where we are now, you've sent them an email saying you'd like to. You've had the CPD audit.
Yes.
You've now literally got to book your interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a case of ringing them up, paying the fee. There, of course, there's a fee, but ringing them up, seeing when the next available slot is that suits everyone. Yeah. And then I understand that approximately, I want to say, I think it's 14 days beforehand, you are given a topic that they want you to present on, so that you are given time to pull this all together during the interview itself. So,
yeah, which is significantly different from before, because I was on the other side of it on the interview panel in the I was going to say old days then, about 6 months ago. And it's basically set questions and you go through them and they're always the same, and people have to provide answers. So it sounds like a bit of a different format, a very different format now, which sounds like it's good actually, because you can go away and research something. Okay, so obviously we'll stay in touch anyway, as we do, but if we can when your interview is, we can sort of plan our next call around that, and whether we do it either we can sort of talk about preparing for that, or depending on timings, maybe we talk about how well it's gone and how you're now a chartered member. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, awesome. So as you said somewhere at the beginning of this conversation, focus on the the achievement you've got to this point. You've one last hurdle now to pass, which I'm pretty sure, knowing you, I'm pretty sure it'll be absolutely fine.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, amazing. Well, thanks again, Leila, for your time. I really, all these conversations we've had have been useful, but I think particularly this last one, as we get into the sort of new area of the assessment process, be really useful for members. So, thank you very much.
Perfect, no problem.
We'll speak again soon.
Cheers, Chris.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed today's show. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and I'll see you on the next one.